no blood, no foul.
It's no blood, no foul.
It's no blood, no foul. Emotions spill on the court when you proud to rep your city. New York's the hometown. Playgrounds prepare me for them hard fouls. Diving on the asphalt and driveways.
What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the No Blood, No Foul podcast presented by Real GM. I'm your host, Slice, and tonight I'm joined by my co-host, Coke, as well as our executive producer, Moo. The Knicks bounced back from that tough loss to Phoenix on Monday night with their 10th win in 11 tries, 113-94 tonight against the Chicago Bulls to go to 35-28 for the season and jump back into fourth place. Sole possession of fourth, I should say. The Knicks came out firing as all starters scored before the first timeout break, and they jumped out to an 18-point lead in the early quarter before eventually ending up the first up 13, 32-19. The Bulls then started the second quarter on their own run, 13-2 to cut the Knicks lead down to 2. But the Knicks were able to push it back to 11 before Chicago went back on another mini run, closing it out to make it a 4-point game heading into the half, 52-48. Julius Randle led the Knicks with 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists at going into the halftime break, while Vucevic led Chicago with 16 and 8. The third quarter saw Chicago stay in it as they actually took their first lead of the game, only a point 2 times, but the Knicks never let them get it closer to that as they went up into the fourth, up by 1, 76-75. IQ then came out blazing, guns fired, guns shooting in the fourth quarter, scoring 11 points in the first 6 minutes as part of a big run that also saw fellow Rook Obi Toppin make a couple of highlight plays as well, as the Knicks ran away with a dominant fourth quarter en route to that 19-point victory. Nerlens Noel played a great game defensively as well, guys. 9 stocks if you're adding up the steals and the blocks tonight, while Julius Randle ended the game with his 7th 30-point game in the last 9, dropping 34 points on a night where the Atlanta Hawks got absolutely smacked by Philly to give the New York Knicks sole possession of fourth place, like I mentioned before. And that's a big win for the Knicks, some positive momentum before we head out to the West Coast for that 6-game West Coast swing. Coke, I'm going to kick it off to you for your thoughts, man.
Well, this is what we've come to expect from this team. When we take a L or when Julius Randle doesn't live up to, the standards that he set this season, we always tend to bounce back immediately. And, the same thing happened again tonight. As you said, Randle came through money, another 30-plus point game, contributing across the board. We got 22 from RJ. I see he was back to his normal productive self, being efficient again, 9 for 15 from the field, 3 for 5 from 3. And, he dropped his 22 points. And when our 2 lead dogs are rolling, we're a tough team to beat. And I think we've proven that time and time again this season. And then, when you get peripheral contributions from, Reggie Bullock with his 3-point shooting, and then off the bench, we've got it lately from Rose, but tonight it was IQ. And I liked how he answered the bell in the fourth quarter. Third quarter, things were kind of getting away from us. They grabbed the lead. They had some momentum. And IQ, he really stepped up. He came in hitting some clutch threes. And, hey, what's up with those long logo threes that he's starting to take? And he's making them. So, as long as he's making them, I'm fine with those Curry bombs. So, just contributions abound. And I'm liking what I'm seeing. Every night, we get different contributions from someone else. It's just that we need the consistency from Randle and RJ. RJ is another one who's showing some resiliency. He bounces back even from half to half, let alone game to game. So as long as those guys are rolling and we get those big dogs doing their job, usually, the points that we get off the bench that can lead us to wins, we tend to struggle when we don't get that, those points from the 2 lead dogs. And tonight we got it and we're back to our winning ways. Hey, Mo, give me your contribution on your take on the game.
You know what? When I saw the starting lineups, my first thought was, you can't possibly lose to a team that's starting Garrett Temple. So good thing that they didn't. Like Cook said, it's kind of expected, right? You're expecting this team to not be phased, and they just grind. I keep saying that, but that's what they're doing. At no point, the Bulls made a couple of runs. But it didn't seem like the Knicks were phased. And this was with Randle really not, again, kind of in the flow of things. I think part of it is the Bulls tried to guard Randle the same way the Suns did. They just weren't as successful because they're not as good a team. But so it looked kind of like Randle was again out of it. Some of his shots early on was a little bit flat. He was leaning on some shots, he was resting some shots, but it's good to see that everybody else on the team picked it up, especially, and I will say it, Nerlens Noel had probably the most impressive game I've seen from him. The stats may not indicate. I think he had like 4 blocks. He was really impressive. He was the difference, right? Rose had been kind of the difference maker for the last several games. Noel was the guy tonight. So all you guys that think I'm hating on Noel, I'm definitely giving the guy props. Tonight was huge. He was a big impact guy that kept the Knicks afloat with his defense. And one of the things I've noticed is that he might, I've complained about his post defense. His perimeter defense is actually pretty good. So he was out guarding Kobe White on a lot of different switches, and he did a really good job with it. So definitely kudos to him. Overall, it was an ugly game. I thought the officiating was awful. It was just brutal. There was a point, I think, in the third quarter that Daniel Theis and Randle got kind of hooked up, and it was either an out of bounds on Theis or a foul on Randle, and they called it a out of bounds on Theis. That was with like a 5-second delay. I was wondering what the heck is going on, but in any case, it was a good win, despite the fact the Bulls got they didn't get a lot of calls. I'll be honest, as a Knicks fan, just being fair, there were a lot of missed calls, but you know what? That's part of the game. Knicks grinded it out. And did you guys notice headband Frank at the end? He had a headband on.
Because he got them braids too.
Yeah, he got them braids also.
He got the braids too with the headband, man. Hey, you might as well look fly on the bench if you're not going to get on the court in the game.
Yeah.
I don't blame him there. But Moo, it looks like you're giving Rob in the chat over here, as well as Jim, who's not able to join us today. And even Nerlens wins over even the biggest doubters, so he's winning you over. But yeah, like you said, you brought it up. He had 9 steals and blocks combined. I like to call them stocks, even though they're not really pointed out too much. 5 blocks, 4 steals, which were huge. The Knicks had 9 blocks as a team, 10 steals overall. But I think one thing that none of us have mentioned yet, and I was actually kind of surprised because I thought my slice out the box would get taken out a little early tonight, was actually the Knicks only had 4 turnovers. To me, I think that's probably the biggest thing that we really need to look at here, no matter on who our competition is right now. Taking care of the basketball like that is huge, and that's something that right now the Knicks are in playoff territory. It's not a question of will the Knicks make the playoffs. The magic number now, I think, is one more Knicks win or one more Chicago loss, takes it into gets the Knicks guaranteed to be in at least the playoff scenario, or the play-in scenario, I should say. But right now, I'm more worried about the Knicks getting in that 4 to 6 seed and being a lock for a playoff team. I think that's the ultimate goal. But 4 turnovers tonight was huge. The Knicks forced 14, which led to 19 points. So winning the battle of the turnovers, especially now, and getting into that mindset, to me, is probably the biggest thing. And that's not really something we've seen from a Knicks team, right? We all hate our point guards. We all talk about the lack of having point guards who can move the ball around. And Julius Randle, he averages almost more turnovers than that by himself. The only blotch on his resume so far this season. But I think overall, just I think that's a huge area of focus for me and something the team needs to continue doing.
I'm loving this playoff talk, man. I promise you guys that I wouldn't be bringing up the draft, and I'm gonna honor my word. But I'm just gonna say what I want. Of course, we all want that 4th seed, but I feel like it's kind of mandatory. We got to get that. We've proven ourselves to be a much better playoff team this season. And I think it would be great to secure home court advantage as the 4th seed. And, if we can get a first round win, that would really speak volumes about what we did this season. I mean, we've already, made, tremendous strides, but to get home court advantage and even to advance, I don't think that anyone could, have dreamt a scenario up that would top that. So that's what I want to aim for. I want to, don't take your foot off the gas. Let's keep the pedal to the metal. Let's keep trying to get these wins. And let's continue to fight. And, like you guys said, contributions from Noel, I can't speak more about it. The guys, he's done a hell of a job stepping in for Mitch. No one would have thought when Mitch went down that we would be able to still thrive. Like, we just wanted to stay afloat, but like, we're pretty much thriving. So, can't say, enough about him. He deserves some money this season, and I hope we can bring the guy back. Yeah,
I mean, I don't think the Knicks will fall back Tibbs won't let them. I mean, I don't. You guys saw early in the first, Tibbs looked like he was gonna pop a vein or something, screaming at RJ for our missed assignment. He's not gonna let the Knicks falter, right? There's no way that he's gonna allow the Knicks to get on a downward spiral or do anything other than play what they're doing, team basketball, team defense, right? You get everybody involved. Randle's your guy when he's not in. Everybody knows their role, right? The big thing about this team is it's pretty clear that everybody knows their role, right? Even if you get, IQ every once in a while going a little bit nuts, you do know everybody knows exactly what they're supposed to do. That's more all you can ask for a team that doesn't have a lot of talent, right? That's how you make up for it. The lack of talent is by team play. And this team is really the epitome of a team playing team basketball to the max. I would not be surprised if they're a fourth seed, right? The way things are going, the East. A lot of those teams, I don't know, they're up and down. The clear, obviously the big three, the three teams at the top, that's pretty, I think that's a lock. I do think the Knicks right now are the fourth best team, definitely. So I would not be surprised, and I would actually expect them to be fourth.
Yeah, I mean, I think fourth is the realistic goal. I think, it's the Knicks to lose, right? They're in fourth right now. There's not that many games left in the season. I think under 15 left for each, for almost every team out right now. So it's there. And looking at the standings right now, you got the Hawks, as we mentioned, in fifth, Boston in sixth, Miami seventh, and you got Charlotte, Indy, and Washington holding it down for the 8, 9, 10 spots, with Chicago and Toronto on the outside looking in. To me, the only team not that we should be scared about, but to me, the only team outside of the big three that you mentioned is probably Miami. I think they're probably the toughest ones out of those, in that 5, 6, 7, 8 spot that the Knicks might have a tough chance of playing in the playoffs. And we had Will Manzo on with us, from Miami before, and he said it as well. He's like, that would be one of the best matchups the NBA could have at the 4 or 5 spot because of the team defenses for each of those teams and the way and the stylistic similarities between them. Got Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo going up against Julius and RJ. They got those two guys which are ranked a little bit higher coming into the season. Obviously, I think Julius stepped way above Bam, and then it's debatable how people want to rate him and Jimmy Butler. But this season, I think Julius is, the best player out of all 4, obviously. I'm better than RJ. But to me, it looks like Miami's the only team the Knicks might have some difficulty with. There might be a hard series. Any other team outside of the top 3 in Miami, I think the Knicks spank them and we get into the second round easily.
Yeah, and just to expand on that, I mean, even, stylistics aside, how about nostalgia? New York and Miami renew a rivalry and, just going at it in the playoffs. I think any long-time Knicks fan would love to see that. I know I would. And then you got a guy like, Jimmy Butler, he's a competitor. Let's baptize RJ Barrett by fire, have him guard that guy, go against the premier wing who really wants it really bad. And I think that's the perfect, kind of series to get our guys some playoff experience and get ready for, a war, something that's going to be a defensive, well-fought battle by 2 teams that are, great coaches. But I want to double back to something that Slice said a little bit earlier about, only 4 turnovers. That's another thing. This squad, if you're not going to score the ball, you better be a ball control team. And if you're not going to get dynamic point guard play, you better not turn it over. So I want to throw Kyle a quick little bone. If you can tell us where the Knicks rank, this season as a team in turnovers, I'm just curious, is tonight, I know tonight's an extreme, but are we really a good ball control team that doesn't turn it over overall? Or, is tonight the anomaly? So, whenever you can come up with that, just throw that out there.
All right. I got it right now. We are 18th in turnovers per 100. So not bad, not great.
Yeah, middle of the pack. Okay. Well, with that said, I like to see us, let's make tonight more of, in line with the average, not just 4, but just, on the lower end. Let's get to that top echelon as we're nearing the playoffs, take care of the ball because, we all know that the playoffs is a second season. You better not turn it over. The pace is going to slow down. It's going to get a lot more physical. So if we can, take care of that basketball, knowing that we don't have any point guards who are going to go crazy shooting the ball, I think that'll be a big help because, these guys are going to start throwing those zones back at us.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's kind of one of the things that I'm worried about. It's good that I think Tibbs mentioned that having Rose and Taj, right, guys with a lot of playoff experience, especially playing in the playoffs for him, that will help the team. What will also help is it looks like the refs are letting the Knicks play, traditional Knicks basketball. right? They're not calling fouls. They're just letting them grind and pound and, beat the other team up. It definitely reminds me of the 90s Knicks, Heat rivalry. I still have pictured that image of JVG on riding Alonzo's leg. That was the classic, right? But yeah, I think it'll be an interesting. I would rather avoid it, to be all honest. I'd much rather go against someone like the Celtics, which I think we match up a little bit better with. But hey, if it means a Knicks Heat 4 or 5 in whichever order for the first round, it'll be great. This team, I think, will not fold. Whether they'll win, I don't know. Right? That's a really talented Heat team with Jimmy Butler. That he's a big time step up guy come playoff time. So whatever it is, it's going to be exciting. If we hit that series and we win, great. If we lose, I know it's going to be close and it's going to be a grind and it's going to be entertaining. So it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising that Jimmy actually led that team. If you look at that roster to the finals last year, right? Even bubble aside and everything like that, the way that Jimmy Butler can elevate his teammates and the level of play of his team on the floor while he's out there is huge. And I like Coke's point that he said baptism by fire for RJ Barrett, because that's exactly what it would be. As much as, I agree with you, Moo, you want the Knicks to get that confidence build to go into the second round and get an easier matchup. You got Jim in the chat saying bring on the Celtics or the Hawks, who would obviously be much better matchups. The Celtics, you still got to worry about, Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, who always is a Nick killer with some shots that he hits. So that would be a little bit of a tough matchup. But I think Miami, to me, for the nostalgia factor that was already mentioned, and just to see the Knicks pick up a tough, and knock out the reigning Eastern Conference champions and pick up a tough, hard-fought victory in that first round there would give the team that extra confidence to, and I don't think we're going to beat any of the top 3 teams in the East. That's just, that's the ultimate pipe dream. I think, you're definitely, expecting too much if you think they're going to win that. But I think that gives them the confidence to take 1 or 2 games against those teams and really build them up to the next level and start getting teams, or players, I should say, to realistically look at the Knicks and say, damn, they just beat the defending Eastern Conference champions. They just took 2 games against, one of the NBA champion hopefuls this season. Let's give them a look. Tibbs has played. Tibbs is coaching that team well. Julius has stepped up. RJ stepped up. Let's be that missing piece that they need to get over the hump. And I think this is the best team to bring this positive attention to New York in a very, very long time. Since this guy who played in Syracuse right here, Melo, was here. This is the best team that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, to that point, best team, and we're building one of the best cultures. And I think that was a big buzzword, when management took over. We heard it in the past with Steve Mills and, Scott Perry, but it's coming to fruition under Leon Rose and Worldwide West and those folks. And I like what Immanuel Quickley said in his post-game interview. That was one of the first things that he said. We're building a culture. And I think along with culture, it also comes with, building an identity. And I think, to what Mo was talking about earlier, I think that's why we're getting those calls from the rep. I mean, we're not getting the calls. We're allowed to play physical, is because we've established that we have an identity based on defense again. And that's always been, was a major success with New York, defense and team play. And, we're establishing that. And I think we're starting to get a little leeway because of that. They'll let us get physical, especially in the fourth quarter. I know, I think it was right before the All-Star break, we were kind of getting calls going against us in crunch time. Everybody was all bent up about it. I know I was. But, now we're starting to see, the tide turn a little bit. And I think because we firmly established, hey, this isn't a fluke. We are a good defensive team. We are going to fight. Even if we get down, we're going to make a comeback. Might not always win, but we're going to fight back. And, when players see that, when coaches see that, even when the refs see that, you build that equity in their mind and you get the benefit of the doubt. And, I like what we're doing here. So, heading into, closing out the season, I think, it was imperative that this year was a building block, that we established something. I think we've done that. And I think it's pretty clear, what we need to improve the team. And I like where we're going. And, no longer the laughing stocks. Like, I know people say, are we going to be stuck middle of the pack? Is this the year going to be a fluke? I don't think so. I think we're headed in the right direction. And I think we're going to maximize our assets and we're going to make something happen even after this little playoff showing.
For sure. So I just want to point out to something Rob said in the chat, which pertains to what we're just talking about here. So he said, we remind him of the grit and grind Memphis Grizzlies. The refs let them get away with murder because of the rep. And now the Knicks have that rep. and, talking about how no blood, no foul, how we named our podcast turned out to be accurate prediction as it pertains to the Knicks season, which is definitely true. To me, I think the similarities to the Grizzlies is really the only thing that Rob said there is the Knicks have the same reputation. Memphis had that lockdown perimeter stopper in Tony Allen, right? The rest of it was then just solid defensive players who knew their role against them. The Knicks right now are more traditionally, I guess if you're going back to what the NBA is like, where your center spot is really your best defender, your main guy to hold it down there, and the rest of the team around him is playing that ball. And I think that also, the Grizzlies' defense was better designed for this in that era of the NBA where it's still a perimeter-oriented league, so you need that perimeter player. And I don't think we'll ever get a defender like Tony Allen for a long time in New York just because of how rare it is for somebody of that talent. But I think the Knicks' team defense and the culture that Tibbs brings, similar to what Lionel Hollins brought back then, unless I'm getting the coach completely wrong in my head, is very similar. But I think Tibbs gets more out of less in terms of the team defense versus having that, one or two. I think Shane Battier was even on those teams, right? So they had two lockdown perimeter defenders as opposed to the Knicks who are more, all right, our 5 spot in Mitch and Noel are going to hold it down low. Hey, the perimeter, just do your spot. Reggie Bullock is our best perimeter defender, but he's nowhere near the tier that those two guys were.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to kind of on a related note, I know Burks, he's ready to play. So there was a point, in the third when I was going, it would have been nice to have Burks. Rose had an off game. Just having somebody out there that can actually handle the ball and that can kind of control it. There was a slight moment in the third where I thought, maybe they're losing this, right? Maybe they're losing control of the game. So I was going, where the heck is Burks? Is he, he's available? And then what happens? They go on a run and they blow the Bulls out.
Wait, was your BP finally up for a game, Mo?
It was a little bit, yeah. I also had my wife nagging me, so that didn't help. But yeah, it's an interesting. It was a very nice game. One thing I mentioned it to you guys. Looks like the Knicks are not signing Semi Shitu, and they're going with a Euro point guard. I think he's a point guard.
We're going with Luka Doncic.
Yeah.
All right, Moo. Thanks for getting us demonetized right there, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
Can't say that on stream.
Oh, okay. So it looks like the Knicks are getting their own Euro point guard, Luka Valdizzo. I was looking at some of his clips. He looks pretty good. I called him the Argentinian chocolate. I tried. He looks pretty good. I don't know what the deal is, but I think he was a EuroLeague star. He's only 25. So what do you guys think about that? I'm
not gonna lie, man. I never heard of the guy. I popped in, looked at some highlights, and I was pleasantly surprised. He definitely has, offensive skill. He plays with flair. He looks like he can pass, looks like he can shoot a little bit, looks like he can do a little bit of everything. And if I recall, I'm going off the top of my head, but I think they said he was 6'5", right? So, if he's
pretty tall, yeah.
Yeah, if that's correct, then he has good size. He should be able to, have some switchability. Now, I don't know about defense. That's the thing you always think about with Euro guards. How good of a perimeter defender are they going to be? I think Spencer, someone had dropped a tweet where he was trying to evaluate him. I can't remember if it had defense on there. If anybody in the chat saw that, or Kyle, if you can pull that, let me know.
Yeah.
But as long as the guy can defend, and if the shooting ability is real, and we know he can pass the ball, and we know he plays with some flair, so we know he's not afraid. The fans would probably embrace him. Don't know what the deal looks like, but if this is a guy who is going to have a legit chance to audition next year, then I'm not afraid of that move. I like these high risk, high reward moves. He's not really an older guy, so he's right in his prime now.
Right.
We can develop him, and maybe we catch some lightning in a bottle. I like the move, man. Slice, what do you think?
I never heard of the dude until this news broke out, so I'm not going to act like I'm an expert. I did the same. Some quick Googling. The only thing that really puts some similarities in my mind, or the only similarities I can really draw to, who was the last Argentinian point guard the Knicks had? Pablo Prigioni. We got him about 15 years too late in his career, but he played smart, hard-nosed, and the one thing that stuck out with him, he was always that full court press. He got, how many steals did that dude get on opposing team inbounds, right?
Yeah,
that was his signature play.
Yeah.
And I love to see it. He was able to hit the 3 ball, and he played really well. And I heard, Pablo coming out, he was one of those players overseas, part of those historic Argentinian teams with Ginobili, everybody else, where they kind of stepped up and held it down for everybody who was part of that golden generation. Hopefully this Luka Vildoza guy can step up and have those natural instincts that Pablo did. He might be a little bit more talented, definitely a little bit younger, so see somebody more athletic, just reading quick, he's able to shoot and pass, which is what we need. And Coke's point is probably the best point. How is his defense? Is he going to be a liability on the defensive end, or is he going to be able to at least be at the very worst competent, right? Because that's what you need. Is he somebody who's willing to learn? And, hopefully somebody else can chime in about his athleticism here or something like that. As long as he's able to open up his hips, get low, play good basketball, and buy into a team aspect, I'm very happy with the signing. I don't think you can have enough players who can play point guard. I actually think Immanuel Quickley, and this might be considered a hot take, is better suited off the ball and not as a lead point guard, just in terms of, I think he's more of a scorer or somebody who's better off the ball to kind of hit those big baskets as needed. I think we still need somebody who's a little bit more ball dominant, who's able to kind of settle the offense, which is why Derrick Rose and IQ, granted, neither one of them had a good shooting night outside of IQ's 11 points early on. He was still 4-10, 1 of 5 from three. Right. Only 3 he hit was a part of that big thing. But, even just Derrick Rose, he had 6 assists tonight. So granted, we're always talking about how much he was scoring. I think, the last 10 games, he hit double figures every game. This game, he didn't score at all, but he was able to hold it down and settle the team. So I think getting another guy in IQ's age range in our timeline who can be that player then to play alongside of him, it will be big. So, again, not going to act like I know anything about the guy, but just kind of what I'm more hoping for of what we see from him. Pass, shoot, be competent on defense, and be able to actually lead a basketball team.
So, Gip in the chat is right. According to Spencer, he's at least a decent defender, so he shouldn't be too bad. But back to what Coke said about him being 6'5", he's listed at 6'3", which, again, I'm not going to get into my height conspiracy theory here, but we know that Europeans measure without shoes on. And also, just personally, I think we've talked more about him than he's going to get minutes in the actual NBA for us.
Well, not this season, right?
All right, so now that I brought the I brought the rabbit out the hole, while you're here, I got to drop some bait for you, Kyle. $1 million question: who's older, him or Obi Toppin?
I think it's pretty close. I think they were like a couple minutes apart coming out.
But yeah, I actually thought Kyle was going to be honest for once too. Yeah, I had my hopes up.
Man, don't you know by now everyone's younger than Obi Toppin? God appeared, created the earth, looked at Obi and said, "What are you doing here?"
But speaking of Obi Toppin, I mean, again, if you look at the stat sheet, you won't be impressed. Only what 4 points, but I like the flashes we're seeing. Like, he's starting to look like he belongs. I don't know if you guys caught that beautiful dunk, and then he had a second play where he swooped in for a dunk. He couldn't get it down, but he got the offensive rebound, and I think that's what he's best at. That second jump is really quick, and he just flushed it really quick over the guy if he got the offensive rebound. So we're starting to see plays. We're starting to see functional athleticism. I think we, to the point that was made earlier, I think we do just need that lead point guard who can find him in his spots, get him, going downhill, moving towards the rim, and just keep hitting him on those rolls. And I think he's going to be a productive player, if he plays like that. I think we made him look a lot worse than what he was by like having him camped out as a stretch four, launching up threes, playing tentative. I just think he's a guy, you got to get him going towards the rim, not post ups because he's not strong in that regard. So I just like the flashes that I'm seeing. I'm not looking at like points per game. I'm not looking at the numbers. I'm just looking at the eye test. And, he's starting to make plays that at least looks like he has, an NBA role, which could be that pick and roll guy who can hurt you with the verticality and, with the good hands.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's getting a lot more comfortable. And definitely he fits a certain style, right? The style he played at Dayton is the style he fits in. That's, you get him the ball with him building a head of steam and a pretty decent look at the basket. And that's kind of right. That I think people take for granted as when it comes to Randle as well, right? Just imagine Randle with a real point guard, right? Rather than him having to basically be the point guard to look for his teammates and to look out for himself. Imagine him with a real point guard that can actually get him the ball when he's moving. There was a play, I think late in the fourth, where he put the ball on the floor. He saw an opening. He doesn't see many openings, right? That's the reality of the season for him, is he rarely ever sees any openings, right? Teams are throwing double teams, staggered double teams, triple teams at him as soon as he touches the ball, right? And it's always after Alfred slowly brings it up past midcourt, right, and gets him the ball. So imagine him on a faster paced team with a real point guard. Randle getting the ball as he's moving towards the basket, right, where he can actually leverage and use all that skill, all that size, all that athleticism he has, and all the talent he has to score. I think if the Knicks can get an upgrade, someone that can pass and set up plays, Randle's going to take it up another step next season. So yeah, but back to Obi, definitely. Obi's the same way, right? You need to put guys in roles that they're good at. Obi's great skill is rim running, finishing, right? That's what he need. The Knicks don't do a lot of that. They're still the bottom in terms of pace. They're slow and methodical. Everything goes to Randle in a half court, or they shoot threes. None of that is Obi's strengths. So I think we Knicks fans, we get on him. We get on everybody, right, for not doing well. But I do like how he's turning around. Like Coke said, definitely eye test. The numbers are still pretty, not good. But the eye test, yeah, he definitely looks more comfortable, and he's fitting in. He's finding his spots, and he's picking it better. He's playing more aggressive. He doesn't have that deer in the headlights look anymore. So maybe next season he takes it up, especially if we get a real point guard.
Yeah, and I mean, that was something I always brought up early on, was right, that deer in headlights looks, which to me just showed like he didn't belong in the league. He was always good for one highlight play every other game, but I always thought that, he just looked too lost and too confused out there in order to really contribute. And we got some people in the chat talking about this right now. You got, Jim coming in saying, he went from the A10 to the NBA with no real offseason. Takes a little bit to get acclimated to the NBA, which is a fair point. And I think we all did bring that up very early on, in the season. Rob is saying Obi stands in the corner a lot, but when he gets the ball, it seems like he can make something happen, which, early on in the season, I used to bring it up a lot. That wasn't really the case. He drove to the hoop and would airball dunk layup attempts. At least now he's looking a little bit more confident in his body, right? To that play that Coke brought up, it was kind of funny. I think it was Spike Lee. He caught the ball in the corner, and everybody thought he was going to go up for that rainbow three, but instead he took his time, took it hard to the hole, and made a play happen. Missing a layup with that quick second step, second jump up, put it right back to the hole. So I thought those were really huge plays. And then Derrick Rose, and this is the point that both of you guys brought up, and going back to our conversation about Luka, is that real point guard that the Knicks need. Right now, Derrick Rose is the best facilitator the Knicks have, and that's why you kind of see those articles that are out there and some of the headlines that we've been seeing where he's been vibing with Obi, vibing with IQ, and they're talking about how much they've learned from him. And, there was that nice play from Rose to Toppin, which we've seen a lot lately, right? I feel like Toppin is always getting 1 or 2 dunks per game off a nice, beautiful, either a lead pass or an oop from Rose. So I think Derrick Rose kind of coming in, teaching Quick how to, how to be a little bit better of a point guard, even though he may be better suited for an off-ball position. But I think he's also helping Obi in a way of saying, look, man, you're athletic as shit. Use that athleticism to do it. Don't rely on the three. You're going to need that to keep the opposing defense honest a little bit, give you that space you need to kind of get that first, second step and get past the defender and take it to the hole, which is what your biggest strength is. So I think Derrick Rose, I would love to see him come back. But I'm hoping this Luka guy is who we think he is can be that distributor because, Coke, I know your main boy was Lonzo, and we had a couple of comments over here. You're going to see a lot of Lonzo versus Luka talk this summer, depending on how that conversation, how he turns out.
Yeah, right. I mean, if this guy's Luka light, then do you even need Lonzo at $20 million? That's a fair take. But we got to see this guy on the court to see if he could do anything in the NBA. The EuroLeague is productive and everything, but you still got to see how guys function against NBA athletes. So I like to see him get on the court. I know it's probably a reach because Tibbs is shortening the rotation as we reach, the last 10 games of the season. So, we'll be lucky to see this guy, to be honest. I think they're going to look at him in practice, but that's why I spoke about next year. Hopefully he has a legit shot to show something next year, and we'll see. Maybe we don't need to spend that money. Maybe we still do. But I got to talk about the bench for a minute. What I'm liking is I know Kyle was going at us for a while saying, hey, Randle needs rest. Tibbs is playing him too many minutes, blah, blah, blah. Well, we're starting to see longer stretches of Randle sitting, and it was evident tonight in the fourth. Obi got some extended run. I don't think Randle got back in it until 6 minutes left. Usually in the fourth quarter, Obi's getting the hook at like, the 9-minute mark or something like that. So, he got a decent stretch. To me, that spells trust. And that's why you don't just gift these young players, minutes. You can develop guys in short minutes, because if they're successful and then you pull them, I know it's annoying sometimes, but, it's almost like training a dog. You end a dog training session on a positive note. That dog feels good. He's looking forward to go to training the next day. And it's the same thing with Obi. He has little flashes, high moments. You pull him. Don't pull him after a mistake. Pull him after he does something well. He's gaining confidence because of that, I think. And then, the byproduct of that is the trust factor. So we're seeing the bench, stay together longer. But now, the cynical look is RJ's playing a little longer minutes. I don't think, did he even sit in the second half? I don't think he's. Yeah, I don't think he really.
He sat for the last minute.
Yeah. Well, pick your poison, Kyle. Randall's getting a rest, but now RJ's not. But
this is why we need Burks.
Yeah, but it's I'm glad to hear that Burks will be back at some point during this West Coast swing. We're gonna need him, and like I said, I'm hoping that we hold on to that 4-2 outcome. That, to me, that would be a huge success if we could end that trip with 4 wins.
Right. So while you brought it up, let's just talk about it right now, right? Our next game, a few days off for the Knicks. Sunday against Houston to kick off the West Coast swing before we play Memphis, I think, is the next game after that. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, so at Memphis on Monday. So back-to-back, actually, to start the West Coast swing, which is going to be a little bit tough. So let's talk about it, right? John Wall is not in for Houston anymore. He got taken out the rest of the season. I'm not sure if Christian Wood is playing for them or they decided to bench him again or, rest him again, whatever you want to call it. So give me you guys' thoughts. How do you think we start off the back-to-back against Houston and Memphis? Coke, I'll kick it to you first.
Man, we better win in Houston. Because, they're trying to lose and they don't have anyone, good available. So we better get that game. As far as Memphis, we owe them one. Didn't they beat us last time? I think, Ja went a little crazy.
We beat them in overtime.
Oh, we beat them. Oh, okay. I'm
beat them in overtime last we played.
All right, so cool. Let's get that sweep. So those are the games that we need to get. We got to make sure we get those. When you're facing the Lakers, that's going to be tougher. Clippers, it's going to be tougher. So we need to get those 2 games for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Houston's gotten 5 Garrett Temples starting, I think, right now. So they better win. I don't think if this was previous seasons and the Knicks were coming off a big win, I would expect a letdown. I don't expect a letdown right now. So I think they'll handle Houston like they should. Then they'll go into Memphis. I think it'll be close, right? Because Memphis they're a pretty good team as well. And they're going to be looking for payback. And we're playing on their home court. So it's going to be tough. But I do think that they can actually pull that out as well. If they can, then they're kind of, playing with house money a little bit. Because then they just need to win one of the remaining 4 to go 500, and I think that's the worst case, which definitely is doable. Best case is you split the remaining 4 games, right? Assuming you could win the first 2, and you're at the 4-2 mark, right? Once they do, if they could do that, I mean, I think the rest of the way it's a pretty smooth ride. But definitely Houston, no way they can lose. If they lose, I don't know what to say. But yeah. That's really my take on it. Yeah.
I think the toughest.
Go ahead, go.
No, I was just going to jump in and say I think the toughest element, with that dangerous Houston Memphis thing is the back-to-back. I hope we don't get some tired legs or the shot just abandons us. But as long as we keep our stamina up and the shots are falling, I feel good about those 2. The rest, they're a little tricky. You got Denver, Phoenix, and then those 2 LA games. So let's hope that we stay consistent. We've been beating the teams we're supposed to beat. Slice, you can jump in now.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the point. I was really going to say, Houston's got Christian Wood, which is going to be another good matchup for Julius to go up against a young big, somebody who's been stepping up in the NBA. He had 24 and 18 in a game against, Minnesota. So he's been stepping up and he's a solid player. Other than that, their really other most consistent player has been Kelly Olynyk. And I refuse to let the Knicks of this year lose to a team where Kelly Olynyk has been one of their best players this year. So I definitely don't want to hear it. And like you guys said, right, this is a Knicks team that hasn't had any of those losses that have kind of, made us question or made us think, damn, this team is really letting us down. I don't really see any, hangover, kind of loss like that, especially because now you're going to have a few days off in between, get that time to rest. We're talking about the heavy minutes. So I think that'll be big to give the Knicks the rest. And I'm hoping it's a blowout win so they can get some rest, late in the fourth quarter before playing Memphis. Now, that Memphis game, that overtime victory is the one that kickstarted our 9-game win streak, if you guys remember right. So that was a huge win. It might be something Memphis has on their, on their message board, their bulletin board, talking about how they let the Knicks pick up that positive momentum. Ja and RJ has always been a kind of a conversation. So that's the game to me that I'm a little bit more worried about, where it's a team that, again, the Knicks should win, but, it's a game, second half of a back-to-back, looking in the West Coast swing. Coke, like you said, got Denver, Phoenix, and the 2 LA teams right after that. So hopefully the Knicks aren't looking too much ahead, which, again, I don't think they will be because I credit Tibbs as a coach. But I think that Memphis game is going to be like our Phoenix game in terms of that's our toughest game at that point, and one of those, must wins. Maybe not a must win, but one of those where we can then split, like you said, one of those 4 against, not split, take one of those 4 against those upper echelon Western Conference teams and really, get a positive or a 500 West Coast swing, which is what we need. So Houston's a guaranteed win. That Memphis game Monday night is something I'm going to be looking at very close, and I think is going to be another very close game that might hit overtime again against those boys.
Yep. Yeah, that Memphis game is a key game. That could really be the swing game for the rest of the season. If they can take that, I mean, that I think locks them up really tightly as the number 4. Regardless of what happens on the trip. Obviously, I expect them to win at least one of the last 3, if not 2 of the last 3. But definitely Memphis is the key game. I think the reason why I'm looking positively is the Knicks usually have problems with really high-end guys that can create shots, right? So Houston, even with Christian Wood, he doesn't create his own shots, right? You could defend guys like that. And the Knicks do a very good job at defending those like secondary, scorers. It's the elite shot creators that they have problems with. Ja, I don't think the Memphis game, I don't think he looked as good as people said he did. I don't know if it's the shortened season or whatever. I don't right now consider him a top shot creator of the level that gives the Knicks problems that I'd worry about, which is why I don't worry about the Memphis game too much. Right. So usually when you move on, when you have those superstars, right, that's when things start, maybe then the refs will start making calls that the Knicks are, getting away with, and that'll, ultimately lead to losses. But I think Memphis game, I don't think they have the type of team that can, really, really, I'm not guaranteeing a win per se, but I don't think it's a team that the Knicks should have problems beating if they're on their game.
The only point I want to bring to you, and you said something about the Knicks and bigs, right? So that game, John Morant had 26, 4 and 6 on 9 and 18, 4, 5 and 3. But then they let Jonas Valanciunas get 20 and 14. The Knicks have been getting beat by a lot of big men recently. And even if you look at the game tonight, we saw Vucevic. He dropped 26 and 18 on us. The Knicks have been letting a lot of big men kind of run rampant, and that's the reason why I did bring up Christian Wood. Is down low, he's a very solid player, able to get boards, offensive boards, and put it back. So to me, your point is great. The Knicks do have a lot more problems with offensive creators and playmakers in the perimeter. But I think one of the biggest weaknesses the Knicks have, even with Nerlens Noel playing a big game like he had tonight, talking about 5 blocks and 4 steals, Vucevic still went off for 26 and 18. So Coke, I know I'm giving a little bit of props to one of the Chicago players tonight, even though they got killed by 19. But let's kick it to you for the flip side. Who's your scrub of the night tonight?
Well, the easy call would be Daniel Tice, but I'm not gonna go there. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna go a little more controversial. I'm gonna go with Patrick Williams, and the reason being, he didn't have a horrible night statistically. He was pretty efficient, 3 for 6 from the field. Broke even from 3, 1 for 2. But didn't really bring anything else. 1 rebound, 2 assists. This is a guy who's built as like, a high upside guy who people say, oh, he has that Kawhi factor where he's going to be an all around player. He just might, need a couple years to blossom. We're hearing all of that kind of talk. But, this guy was drafted 4th overall, and he was pretty invisible. And then you look at a player, who's drafted 25th for us in Immanuel Quickley, and he really keyed the win. 4th quarter, he just, took control of the game, and he lived up, his ranking as a high percentage of his point scorer in the 4th player. And I just feel like he deserves the scrub of the night to me. I was expecting more from him, with the amount of hype that I hear from Chicago fans on, how this is a high upside pick. Didn't really see anything that showed me, this phenomenal player. So scrub of the night, Patrick Williams.
Man, I was hoping you're going to go Kobe White, though, because, you know, he was the reason. He was one of those guys picked over RJ last year for the all-rookie teams. So, you know, to me, I'm going to actually pick a scrub since we don't got no allies with us. Kobe White, you're my scrub of the night tonight, man. You know, you definitely didn't deserve it over RJ. RJ came out and outplayed him tonight. You know, he had, again, I want to bring it back to the game, you know, and I don't think we gave RJ the props. I think you might have been the only one to bring him up. I know I didn't. Moo, apologize if you did, but RJ Barrett, 22 points, 9 of 15 from the field, 7 rebounds and 6 assists tonight. You know, the Knicks, 27 team assists on 42 made field goals and only those 4 turnovers that I mentioned before. You know, there were a lot of Knicks players that came through and passed. All of our starters had multiple assists tonight. Reggie Bullock was the least with 2. You know, Derrick Rose with 6 off the bench. So, you know, I want to give a shout out to RJ Barrett's growth. And, you know, 22, 7, and 6 is an amazing stat line to be that second player behind Julius's 34 and 7 tonight. So, you know, let's definitely make sure RJ gets at least a little bit of talk to him and a little bit of love tonight because, man, we're going to need him to grow and show if the Knicks are going to be, you know, series players and contenders in his playoff picture.
And just to, you know, come on the back end of that comment, you know, going into the season, if you said second year RJ is going to be near, 40% from 3, no one would have saw that coming. No one. You know, we give Bullock his flowers all the time for being a legit shooter and proving it out over the second half of the season. But you look at RJ as, you know, as our other wing, and he's right there hanging with him. Like every game, they're both knocking in. I'm talking about lately, not overall. You know, it's not a stretch to think they're both going to get 3 threes made a game. And that's a good number, 6 threes from your wings. So, and we're starting to see that. I know he's not the natural shooter Bullock is, but I no longer cringe when he's in the corner and he gets the kick out. I'm starting to expect it to go down. And, you know, that's a measure of his development. And I think, you know, that early stretch, I think it was 20-something, his first 20-something threes, he was just like terrible. You know, you fast forward to now and, you know, the jump is just crazy.
But that's the thing, right? He didn't give up, right? He worked at it. I think they said that, you know, he's usually one of the guys in the gym shooting, taking shots, you know, all the time. And he's not afraid, right? We all know if you're playing in New York for the Knicks, you can't be afraid, right? He takes the bull by the horn. If he turns the ball over, so what? Right? If he gets stripped or blocked, so what? He keeps going at it. He's got talent, right? So that commitment, and you see that with IQ as well. I think that's why you see both these guys being trusted by Tibbs, because they will go out and they're not going to get fazed by whatever that gets thrown at them. And they're excelling, right? They still make rookie mistakes or second year guy mistakes, sophomore mistakes. But so what? Tibbs is leaving them out there for that. And so for guys that say that Tibbs don't play young players, he does. He's playing them right now, right? But he's not going to play just anybody. He's playing guys that will go out there, stand tall, fight, right? And just go at it and play ball. And those are the types of the guys he wants, right? And that's why you see Barrett playing 42 minutes. That's why you see IQ rather than Alfred in crunch time, right? Alfred is his guy that starts all the games. You never see him because he trusts IQ more, right? That's kind of the thing I think, you know, fans should kind of accept. I believe Tibbs trusts IQ more than he does Peyton.
To end the game, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what's most important, right? That's why Tibbs keeps Randle and RJ, right? When it was like, I think a minute left in the game before he emptied the bench, even though they were already up by a lot, right? That's his game, right? So that's Tibbs. And if he trusts you, he trusts you, right? It's the closing out the games that's what matters most. And we see Barrett and IQ in there. So there's the trust that a lot of you guys we're looking for, right?
And speaking of trust, I mean, Tibbs, this is the first, you know, coach I've trusted in a long time.
Yeah.
You know, I know, you know, we had some podcasts where we were questioning the dude, but, you know, at some point we got to give him the benefit of the doubt with, you know, his decisions. You know, he look at what he's doing. I mean, he's second in the running for coach of the year. We've conceded, okay, maybe it's Monty Williams, but, you know, he's right there. So he's pressing the right buttons, and, you know, we don't always agree, but for the long-term outlook, and if you look in the win column, it's working. So I'm going to just shut up when it comes to Tibbs, man. Let that man do him until playoff time. I think if we get swept, then everyone's going to bring up his warts again.
It's New York fans, right? Yeah. It's always hot weather, cold weather. So Tibbs is definitely top 2. It's him or Monty. I won't be mad who's ever coach of the year. But I do want to bring in the point. We started talking about IQ in the fourth. The only thing that took IQ out of the game was himself, right? Foul trouble. He got his 5th foul really early in that, halfway through the fourth quarter, the 6-minute mark. And Tibbs had to take him out because he wanted to make sure if the Bulls were able to come in again, like you said, he's not trusting Elf. He's trusting an IQ to come in off the bench and spread it out. And Moo, that's also, I want to talk about a point you brought up before about Julius Randle has been facing a lot of double teams, right? And it's definitely well-deserved and due in part of how great of an offensive player he is with his 30-point games. But I think this is where Reggie Bullock becoming that consistent three-point shooter we needed. Coke saying, now we expect RJ to hit those threes in the corner, right? Now the floor is spreading a little bit because we finally do have players that can hit the 3-ball, and teams know they can't double team as quickly, or as scheming wise as they want to against Randle, because Randle's able to spot out and have at least 2 or 3 shooters outside. If IQ is there, you have 3 shooters, right? We're never going to have that 4 spaced out because Julius Randle is always going to have the ball in, and our center is never going to be. We don't have that floor spacing center, not on the roster this year, and probably not going to be on the roster next year, right? Realistically looking at it. So you need the 3 other players around Julius Randle and whoever our big man is to be consistent threats from deep. So which to me, Reggie Bullock has been that for the past, like you guys have said, he's been around the 38, 39, 40% mark almost every month this season and gradually increasing. RJ Barrett, he break his first 22, 24 threes. After that, he's been a near 40% three-point shooter. So to me, I think that's really been the biggest factor is those 2 guys being consistent shooters. And IQ, if IQ can come in and, he was only 1 for 5 tonight, but let's face it, the Bulls and every other team have to be honest and can't leave him open, because if you do, like Coke has been saying, he has no hesitation pulling up those logo threes. So to me, I think that's really been kind of clutch, right? And I think the other thing is Julius Randle himself is also near 40%, if not exceeding 40% from 3 this year, right? So I think that kind of gives us to the fact where our center is going to run around inside, set off ball screens, crash the boards hard, but you still got another 3 out next to the ball handler who are all able to hit threes, and that's going to be another big thing. Only 12 threes tonight, which is kind of on the low end. I remember Clyde kind of talking about it tonight, and Mike Breen talking about it, how, the attempts weren't really there. The number of makes aren't really there from what you see from the NBA now, but 12 of 27, 45% from 3, you can't ask for anything better than a 19-point wingman.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to point out is the kind of piggyback what you're saying, Slice. Because the other guys are stepping up, you don't need Randle to go 30, 10, and 10 to win, right? Randle can have an off game, he can have 2 off games, and you'll still win. And that's really the key part of the other guys stepping up. Rose being big, Barrett carrying the weight, Bullock. Hopefully when Burks comes back, he adds another element to the game. IQ stepping up. There was 1 3 he was taking. I was like, no. It was like from like the 29 feet or 30 feet away. He jacked it up and then went in. I was like, yeah, but that's IQ, right? He streaks it. He provides energy. But if all these guys step up, you don't need Randle to go, Superman mode to win, and that's critical, especially come playoff time, because teams they're gonna lock in on him even more come playoffs. So you need these other guys to be able to hit open shots and do some damage on the offensive end, and we're seeing that. So that's another good sign, I think, heading this late in the season, heading into the playoffs. So yeah.
Nah, for sure. But yeah, I just figured, it's a good win tonight. I just want to start wrapping it up then, fellas. Coke, I'll swing it to you for your final thoughts then, man.
Yeah, I think the key, if I could summarize the rest of this trip up in one word, is test. We're facing a test. Like we said before, the Houston game is a trap game. Then the Memphis is probably arguably the most important game. Then, you got the other ones that we're facing better teams. So, we better be ready for that challenge and at least hope to split those. And just going forward, I think coming off that road trip, we're going to see where we are, and that's going to pretty much define our regular season. At that point, we'll have a firm idea of the seeding, and, we'll just be looking to close the season out. But so one other thing that I want to keep my eye on is Burks. I want to see how he's reintegrated into the rotation, because, Tibbs has shortened it down to 9. Are we going to go back to 10, or is Burks going to come back and replace Peyton? Because, Peyton's looking like he's being phased out. When you start to see a player, only play bit minutes in the first half, getting token starts, and he only really comes in the second half, for the third quarter start, and then you don't see him again. I'm kind of feeling like if Burks proves that his conditioning is up and, if he's back on the ball, running point, I wouldn't be shocked if we went into the playoffs and, we start to see, Peyton phased out and maybe not in the rotation at all. And Burks is in that starting lineup. That could be key. So I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's just something to watch for. So
You
I want
think
to see.
Burks starts in that scenario?
I wouldn't be shocked, man, because we've been playing him as the point. So I don't think he's gonna put Rose in at a point guard because I think he's on that minutes cap. And IQ, as we all think he's off the ball. He's better as a shooter. So I wouldn't be shocked if Peyton is, has the door slammed on him. That leaves Burks, and then you can kind of go big with that big front court of Burks, RJ, and Bullock to start games. That would be very intriguing for me.
Yeah, I agree with Coke. It ultimately comes down to Tibbs. The good thing about having Burks, even though he's not technically a point guard, Peyton isn't technically a point guard either, right? So you're really not losing much from a point guard perspective. What Burks does is he can actually shoot and score better than Peyton. So maybe that'll help teams from just sagging in on Randle early on, right? Early and often, right? Because you already have Noel out there who's really not an offensive presence. Peyton, I don't think the other teams really pay him all that much attention. I think that's why he's getting a lot of these like flashy layups every once in a while, because teams are focused on other guys. They're willing to let Peyton do his thing and score a layup here and there. I don't think that's something that he can sustain, continuously, especially come playoff time. Burks is experience. He has experience, I think, in playoffs. I'm pretty sure. He's smooth. He doesn't let pressure. We've seen, right, the way he plays, he doesn't let pressure impact him. That's the type of guy you need come playoff time. You give that third guy out there that can score, right, that could create a little bit and score. I think it'd be good. Whether Tibbs will do it, I don't know. I would be surprised if he did, but I think it's something he definitely should look at.
Yeah, I mean, to me, in a starting lineup perspective, I think I'd rather prefer Derrick Rose to start out the game. To me, he's more traditional point guard. He's able to get Julius Randle, RJ Barrett started a lot better in the game. Now, going down the stretch a little bit, how we've been closing out games before Burks got out with COVID, I think maybe I would then prefer maybe Alec Burks in that role because he is that other floor spreader, I should say. Sorry. Out there, 4 players who can then consistently hit the three because, let's face it, facts are facts. He's a better three-point shooter than Derrick Rose. I think we need that later in the lineup with us as well. But to me, to start off the game, personally, my feeling is I'd rather have Derrick Rose be the starting point guard over Elf. The minute restrictions are still there. You can phase them in because you can bring in IQ, you can bring in Burks. If I don't want, Elf is out of the rotation at that point. But I think Derrick Rose starts the game off better for Julius and RJ and the rest of the squad, getting them in the flow of the game a little bit more. Then bring in Alec Burks when needed down the stretch to be that point guard facilitator who's able to shoot the ball a little bit better, spread it out. And then closing the games, I'll probably agree with you guys. I liked Alec Burks and what we've seen from him down the stretch of games. I think him being the primary ball handler for those same reasons I just mentioned to close out the games will work better. But my opinion is Rose to start. Coke, I'll give you a chance to do your quick rebuttal and any thoughts you might have on that before I kick it to Moo for his final thoughts. He's got
yeah, I forgot I was on mute. But yeah, just, not really much to say because, we just got to see it play out. But let's just all keep an eye on that. Fans, us on the pod, and let's see what happens. It's going to be something to take a look at. Burks has got to come back. I don't think you're going to sit that guy. So either you're going to stick with the 9 or, or Peyton's going to go to the bench or you're going to go 10. So let's see how it shakes out. And, here's to a successful road trip.
Yeah, it's just really not much more to be said. I think it's exciting. Having Burks back is a plus, not a minus. I'm not worried about minutes. I mean, Tibbs, he's figured it out so far, and it's worked really well. So I'm expecting him to figure it out. We want Peyton, off the court, off the team, but ultimately, right? And Burks does seem like he's the better guy. But if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. We've ridden with Tibbs with this, kind of this far, and we keep riding whatever he decides. And just hope for the best. I do think having Burks back gives them an option. So let's say if Bullock gets into foul trouble, if he's, not having a good night, any of these guys, right? If IQ's not having a good night, if Rose is a little tired, a little banged up, if Bullock is, streaky shooter, if he's not feeling it, you bring in Burks. And so far, it doesn't seem like any of these guys have a problem with the roles and the minutes they have, which is, another big thing about Tibbs and what he's done is I'm expecting Burks to assimilate back, just fine. So I'm not worried about that at all. I think this team is again in a good spot, and they're moving, really well. It's a really good pace that they're moving at. They're playing at. So yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, no, I mean, Alec Burks' biggest question mark is going to be everybody when they come back from COVID conditioning, right? Derrick Rose took a little bit to come back. Jason Tatum, when he was, for Boston, he had COVID, came back, said his conditioning was the biggest challenge. So we're going to need Burks, hopefully can get his legs underneath him in the Houston and Memphis game before it gets really hard down the stretch without Denver, Phoenix, and the 2 LA teams. To me, like Coke said it, this is a test. These next 6 games are a test because to end the season, you get a little break with San Antonio, who's been disappointing this year, and then Charlotte and Boston. 2 big games for East seeding. Charlotte is in 8th place right now. Boston is in 6th. In the next 7 games how that's really going to go down to. And those are going to be 2 big games. And that, I think that 4th or 5th seed race for the New York Knicks at that point. So the rest of this schedule, we got 6, 7, 8, 9 games left to go. It's going to be very huge and very big. So hopefully the Knicks can take care of it Sunday night in Houston, and then Memphis will be the biggest game thus far to let's really get that litmus test of how the Knicks can react. But right now the Knicks bounce back, 9 wins in a row, tough loss against Phoenix, but win, in a dominant fourth quarter where IQ propelled the team to take sole possession of 4th place in the East. Julius Randle has 7th 30-point game in the last 9, and Nerlens Noel with some great defense. So hopefully the team brings out that positive momentum and keeps killing it. Going up to this West Coast swing. So like we said, the Knicks get a few days off. We're going to see everybody again on Sunday. We thank you guys for tuning in tonight to the latest edition of the No Blood, No Foul podcast. Make sure you give us a thumbs up if you like what you heard, as well as subscribing so you can make sure you can catch our latest videos the second they come out. We love you guys, appreciate you guys, and we'll catch everybody Sunday night. We out.
It's no blood, no foul. It's no blood, no foul. Crying for calls, we took your morale. Congratulations till we run that clock out. MSG to Mecca, this is our house. NYC forever when we mob out. See that kid drip, got that clock clout. Till we run that clock out. MSG Mecca, our house. NYC forever, mob out. Kid drip, clock clout.